I'm exploring a candidacy for President of the United States in 2020.
From the West Side to a possible run for the White House, Julian Castro makes one of the biggest steps in his political career. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Jeff Brady. Castro is launching a committee to explore a run for the White House. He spoke with Eyewitness News reporter Marvin Hurst about returning to the nation's capital as a potential president.
From his home on San Antonio's west side, Julian Castro talks about big news.
I'm pleased today to announce that I've filed paperwork to explore a candidacy for President of the United States.
The 44-year-old former San Antonio mayor and former HUD secretary is exploring a change in address to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Wednesday afternoon, his wife Erica rushed home on a lunch break to watch her husband sign the official documents for his Presidential Exploratory Committee on a Facebook Live feed. Prior to that, he released a 4-minute video in English and Spanish for his possible bid on Twitter. Castro's website for a potential run for the White House is already up and running.
I have a strong vision for the country's future. If I get into this race, I look forward to articulating that. The thing is that this year you're going to have a very talented field of people. You might have 24 people from all over the United States that are running. I think that's going to be fantastic, not only for Democrats, but for the country. And I have a strong vision for the country's future. And if I run, I look forward to making my case to the American people.
The husband and father of two will spend the next month on the road listening to voters' concerns. On January 12th, he'll decide if exploration will become a declaration.
Well, I'm definitely leaning in a certain direction.
Marvin Hurst, KENS 5, Eyewitness News.
I'll announce my plans.
So here's the question. What exactly is an exploratory committee? Well, according to the Federal Election Commission, it's about testing the waters before officially running. Activities can include polling, travel, and telephone calls to determine whether an individual should actually become a presidential candidate in the United States. But exploring only goes so far, because the same FEC states that once an individual raises or spends more than $5,000, he or she must then register as a candidate. Julian Castro will likely discuss today's big announcement with Late Show host Stephen Colbert. This is from video from when Castro appeared on the show back 2 years ago. He and his twin brother Joaquin will appear on the show Thursday night. Okay, not tonight, but tomorrow night, and you can watch it right here on KENS 5 after Eyewitness News at 10. Should be a good interview. Castro didn't make it onto a new straw poll for 2020 Democratic candidates, but that could bode well for him. In this Move On poll released Tuesday, Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke edged out former Vice President Joe Biden as the top choice to run against President Donald Trump. O'Rourke has yet to make an official announcement, of course, but nearly 18% of people said they hadn't made up their mind or they planned to vote for someone else in 2020.